Well, today I've decided to make a video for everyone who's interested in the Tokarev TT-33 and its ammunition. This is applicable mostly to those who live in Canada, as we don't have the ammunition supplies that our friends to the south do. We do get some surplus Czech ammo, but it's sporadic, and you're quite fortunate if you can pick it up when it does hit the shops. In the meantime, you do have a couple other sources. You can buy the Cellier & Bello commercially produced ammo. It's a bit pricey, somewhere between 22 and 25 bucks a box of 50. It's perfectly fine ammunition. It shoots well, a little underpowered compared to the surplus stuff, but it does have a good brass case and is reloadable with boxer primer. Alternatively, yes, I mentioned the surplus. We have the Czech stuff, which is usually available in boxes like this. This one produced in 1951, and it comes on stripper clips. And then every now and then we get the Polish box of ammunition. Apparently, I haven't shot any of this, but apparently it's a little underpowered compared to the Czechoslovakian ammunition. The necks are dimpled. The cases are brass, but Berdan primed, therefore not reloadable easily. Another alternative is to reload using commercially available brass. Here we have a Starline produced product, 762 by 25 Tokarev. It's a nice brass. I've never had any problems with it. Boxer primed, reloadable, very nice product. But again, in Canada, the availability is spotty, so when you find it, you buy it. It's also quite pricey, between 22 28 bucks a box of 100. So what do you do if you can't find any surplus? The commercially available stuff is just not to be had, and you really want to shoot your Tokarev. Well, here's something I learned talking to a few other enthusiasts in the area. You take 5.56 brass, 0.223. Now the pieces I have here are ex-military, so they have the primer crimp. You start by, of course, tumbling your brass and then chamfering the crimp out of the primer pocket. Next, you take your brass and you mark it off just over 1 inch in length. The first step we'll do with this small tubing cutter. These are available almost anywhere, any hardware store. Myself, I bought this one at the renowned Canadian institution of Princess Auto. So taking the brass, place it in the jaws at your mark. You can't really see it, but I've marked mine with a small scribe. Tighten it gently. Tighten, rotate. You can feel it cutting through. Almost there. There it goes. One-inch long brass. Now we'll be necking the brass with the Lee brass sizing set. This is the non-carbide set. It's not available in carbide, so we must lube the cases while doing our process. So we'll take our die and shell holder, raise the ram fully up, bring down the die until it touches the shell holder, and hand tighten the locking nut. Lower the ram, put our piece of brass in, raise it up, and watch the magic happen. Looks similar to a piece of Tokarev brass. Our next step is to ream the inside of the brass out to bring it within spec of the Tokarev brass. The 223 brass as cut is fairly thick compared to the Tokarev brass, so what we have to do is ream it out using a .302 drill bit or an N-gauge drill bit. What we should be using, I don't have one yet, what we should be using is a two-way drill press vise, but as this is a pretty low-tech operation, I'll be using handy dandy set of pliers. Now we'll be taking our brass blank and cutting it to length using the Lee ball grip cutter with a specially made length gauge. Lee doesn't supply, in fact nobody supplies, a length gauge for the Tokarev brass. So a friend of mine did a little bit of research and came up with a 38 special length gauge that he turned down in length and in thickness on his lathe. It works really well, and highly recommend having this done. Talk to a machine shop, or if you know anybody with a lathe, to have this done. It's well worth the effort and the few dollars it'll cost. So we'll take our brass blank, put it in the shell holder, into our cordless drill, and quite simply, on the torque setting, trim our brass. Okay, after a bit of a technical hiccup, namely the cordless drill losing its battery charge, I had to dig out the old trusty plug-in drill, Torque Monster, and we got the job done. Now we've got our piece of brass that we will check for length once more, and we're within spec, 25 millimeters, and it's rough around the edge, so now it's time to chamfer. We're going to use the Lee chamfering tool. Great handy little device, works well, it's cheap. A couple of turns on the inside of the neck, a couple of turns on the outside, gets all the ugliness off of it. Nice to the touch. So now we've done that, all we have to do is load with your choice of primer, fill with your choice of powder. There's not of information available online as to what type of powder and how much to load with. We know that these rounds are loaded hot. The actual TT-33 can handle a hot round. I've developed my own powder load, of course starting safe and working its way up, but I encourage everyone to do their own load development and get quite proficient with that and be comfortable with your own loading. So loading your choice of bullet. I go with the Hornady 86 grain semi-jacketed lead round nose. It's a nice little bullet, never had any problems with it. Well, with the exception of my first few rounds, I built the overall length cartridge a little long and I had trouble feeding, but after fooling around with it a bit, I got it down to a good size and I haven't had any loading problems since. Alternatively, you could use the 30 cal Hornady rifle round. It's 110 grain, fully jacketed, nice little bullet, no problems loading it at all. This probably because it seats in the case a little longer, straightens out, no chance of going in cockeyed. Nice little bullet. And when you're done, you'll end up with a nice cartridge as such. That's with the lead tip, round nose, and this is the rifle bullet round, fully jacketed.